There are, of course, many arguments against this claim. One involving the results of a test using the phytoestrogen found in soy, genistein. In this study, exposed mice were found to show a decreased adult body weight. The dilemma here is that both genistein and DES are estrogenics, but have been shown to have opposite effects. This poses the question of what role estrogenics play in the risk of obesity. Are estrogenics promoting or inhibiting the adipogenic gene transcription? Clearly, more studies need to be conducted, which brings me to the risk assessment portion of this presentation. The issue is definitely a threat, and the problems don't stop at obesity alone either. Obesity also increases the risk for other problems such as diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke, and high blood pressure. Some may argue that the hypothesis that obesity is linked to chemical exposure and endocrine disruption is a little ambiguous. Even though obesity and the increased use of chemicals happened at the same time, the two events could be unrelated. But we need to consider the results of the following studies I referred to in the previous slides and their significance. This is a new area of study, so data is limited, but we can't think of the data of one study not being enough. We need to consider the power of the data as a whole, from all the studies, as a cumulative source of evidence. So many people aren't convinced, since the only studies that have been done have been on cell lines or animals, but it's important to think outside the box and know that these studies have implications to humans. It's also irrational to think that studies could actually be carried out on humans. Epidemiological studies are definitely good, but they're extremely difficult to control due to so many outside variables, and this usually leads to a small sample size. It would also be unethical to purposely expose humans to toxic chemicals and study them for a matter of years. This area of research is still in its early stages, as I've mentioned before, and more tests need to be done to confirm the validity of the idea of obesogens. Additional studies involving genistein and DES would be helpful in trying to gather more data on the role of estrogenics and the potential for obesity, since current studies are giving opposite results. It could be possible that the results are related to one chemical being synthetic and the other being a phytoestrogen, but clearly more information is needed. Studies on model organisms other than mice might also be helpful to perhaps examine physiological differences of animal groups and how obesogens act differently among them. There are many things you can do to avoid exposure to these chemicals and that could possibly lead to obesity. Limiting the use of plastic bottles and storage containers is a good start. Some sources you may not have thought of and you should avoid would be raincoats, plastic shower curtains, and even fake worms used for fishing. It's also a good idea not to buy products with added fragrances. A decrease in the use of disposable plastics would also be to our benefit. There are some safe options to prevent the risk I've just discussed, and those options include using aluminum and glass, buying grass-fed meat, and planting a home garden, so you know where your vegetables came from and you're not at risk for being exposed to any fungicides with organotins in them. I believe that this issue should be taken seriously. By acting now, we could be preventing future generations from the risk of obesity and other health-related issues, whose risk is increased with obesity. There really is no reason not to do what we can, since we really have nothing to lose and so much to gain. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope that you liked it, learned something new, and will do something with the information you have been given to better the quality of life for generations in the future.